Hello, everybody. Frank Kennedy here again, episode 4, as this journey continues. Previously, I've talked about the collectorate, about the Father Unbound, and finding my way back to the collectorate through the novel The Last Everything. And now that I've got The Last Everything written, the big challenge is now, how do I take this single story and lead it into a series that isn't just going to go on and on and on forever? I wasn't interested in writing what amounts to a science fiction soap opera. I actually wanted to have a very satisfying conclusion to some big, massive galactic arcs. But I knew it was going to take at least 3 and maybe 4 books to do the things that I wanted to accomplish. And I had kind of a vague roadmap going forward. I knew generally where each book might end, but I like to kind of see how things are going to go as I'm working my way there. Now, one of the things that I was able to do early on in The Last Everything that I think was really important in terms of setting the stage going forward was able to establish some elements to the larger mythology that would come back around. In other words, there'd be payoff for them later on in the series. And so in the climactic section of The Last Everything, I'm not going to spoil what's going on there, but let's just say there's a final climactic showdown of sorts between Jamie Sheridan, our protagonist, and Lydia. Lydia is something that's within him, and she's not like the annoying aunt who comes to visit way too often, but she is very annoying, and she's quite furious at him for what he is attempting to do to save the day. And she ultimately tells him, as she is on the brink of losing potentially, "You were a pitiful human," she said, "and I will see to it that before you leave me, your soul will spend forever cast in pain and grief. And in time, the chancellors will understand what they have unleashed upon themselves. The dark will drown them all." Now, that would turn out to be an absolutely critical line because, first of all, what's the dark? What do we mean by drowning in the literal or figurative sense? And so that was going to have to play out over the course of the longer story. And keep in mind, in this first book, we're taking place in Alabama. We have some chancellors here, but they're not in their universe. So we haven't really experienced that universe yet. There's a long, long way to go. We're going to have the story where our characters are kind of fish out of water, and then we'll begin to adapt to their new universe and kind of go from there. So there's a long, long story ahead, but this singular line, "the dark will drown them all," will prove to be critical and ultimately one that I will pay off by the end of the series. So the first book is about Jamie Sheridan. He's angry, he's confused, he doesn't know what to make of himself, and he's presented with this opportunity. But by the end, he is a much more, should we say, defined individual. He says to his friends, "I'll look after you as long as I can, just like you did for me. The chancellors won't say no to me. I won't give them a chance. We're not running anymore." And so now we move deeper into the series, and this means that now we have a sea change in terms of the temperament and the motivation of the characters. And so the second book in the series is The Risen Gods, and this book actually picks up literally where the first one ends. The first one doesn't end with a cliffhanger. I don't call it a cliffhanger because the major arc of the book is resolved. You could stop there, and it would be kind of like if you watched The Matrix, for instance, or the original Star Wars, A New Hope, and these were grand endings, but not every thread was resolved, and you could leave it to your imagination as to what would happen thereafter. But certainly given where the first book ends, the second book pretty much needs to pick up right there. And so that's where we go moving forward into the Risen Gods. And I'm not going to spoil any plot points in the Risen Gods, the Reversing Tide, or the concluding book, The Promised Few, except to say that one of the things I enjoyed greatly in these books was throwing some of your basic scientific tropes, science fiction tropes on their head, kind of taking you in some directions you probably did not see coming, and perhaps having the hero being someone that you did not necessarily think was going to be. And ultimately being able to round this out in what I think is a very thrilling and I hope satisfying story, both in terms of the plot, but also in terms of the arcs of these characters. I really wanted to give them a great overall story. So I hope that you will take the time to go into the Impossible Future series. By the way, the title of the series, The Impossible Future, that is itself something that will be paid off in the final book. What exactly the Impossible Future is, I'm going to let you linger on that one for a while before you do finally get to the end. So if you would like to venture forth, here is the series page. And also, if you would like to binge, you have the opportunity also to purchase the entire box set. Just read it straight through. I know a lot of people love to do that. So thank you for following me through this journey so far. Down the road, I'll talk a little more about some various elements of writing and storytelling, but I also want to take you into a couple of other areas where I'm going, as well as looking into new releases in 2021 and 2022 and what those stories are going to be all about. So thanks a lot for being with me so far, and I will see you in episode 5.